that fights the highly contagious Delta strain. Joining me now, Treasurer Josh FRYDENBERG. Treasurer, you are on that National Security Committee. What's on the agenda? You've had your briefing already. What will you be discussing?
We'll be discussing these latest outbreaks, as you say, Koch in New South Wales, the Northern Territory, new restrictions in Western Australia, which underline the importance of rolling out the vaccine as fast as possible, particularly to those vulnerable cohorts. And the Prime Minister's also called a meeting of the National Cabinet to bring the state and territory leaders together to align responses, because we've seen border closures and we've also seen how dangerous this new Delta strain is, because it's a lot more contagious than the previous strains.
Are you going to have to get tougher on mandatory vaccinations? Like, less than 40% of aged care workers are vaccinated at the moment. It's not mandatory for quarantine workers to be vaccinated, like this bus driver who started the outbreak in New South Wales. Are you going to have to get tougher? Are you going to have to force people to be vaccinated in certain jobs?
Well, we certainly need those workers who are dealing with the more vulnerable cohorts, as you say.
Will you make it mandatory?
For example, the aged care residents. That is what we would like to occur, and we're working with the states and territories to get their agreement on that, and that's another topic to be discussed among National Cabinet members. But what we are doing is rolling out the vaccine already to more than 7.3 million doses. Over 28% of eligible recipients across Australia have received a first dose, and in the more vulnerable cohorts, the over 50s, we've seen more than 50% of people receive a first dose. Over 60s, around 60% have received a first dose, and for the over 70s, nearly 70% have received a first dose. But what we've seen in the United Kingdom, for example, Koch, is even with 80% of their population having received the first dose. Just yesterday, they had 18,000 cases, so it is challenging.
But their hospitalisation rates are way down.
Correct.
So, but because people are vaccinated, it's like getting the flu over there. They're not going into hospital. That's why it is a race.
That's absolutely right.
To get everyone vaccinated.
Well, you're absolutely right that the vaccine prevents serious illness. And is being very effective with that, and that is why we do want to roll out the vaccine as quickly as possible. There's only one person in Australia right now in an ICU, as I understand it, having contracted COVID. So we have been successful, and we have met these challenges before, and we'll meet them again.
You're releasing the intergenerational report today, sort of a forecast of the future. Some big issues to be discussed there. Number one, how important migration is to this country going forward, and we've got to open our borders.
Well, this report, which comes out every 5 years, the intergenerational report, is not a prediction of the future, but it's an insight into what Australia could be, because it's based on existing policy settings. And what it does show, to your point about population, is that Australia will be growing more slowly as a result of the impact of COVID and the closed borders. So we're expected to get to just over 38 million people, and that is lower than what we'd previously expected. We also see the pressures from an ageing population on the budget, particularly increased expenditure on health, and we've also going to see that our debt levels continue to rise, but they remain low by international standards. So this report provides some important warning signs for government to act.
Okay, now you've got to go. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.